Younger women choosing older men didn't begin as a trend, and it didn't begin online. It began quietly, almost invisibly, as a reaction. A reaction to instability, to emotional chaos, to a dating culture that promises freedom but delivers confusion. When younger women speak honestly, away from public performance and social approval, they describe something deeper than money or status. They describe relief. Relief from games. Relief from uncertainty. Relief from men who are still trying to discover themselves while demanding intimacy they haven't earned. This shift is not romantic fantasy, and it is not about age gaps for shock value. It is about contrast. Older men represent something that has become rare in modern dating: grounded presence. Not loud confidence, not performative dominance, but a quiet certainty that doesn't need validation. Younger women are responding not to age, but to what age has carved into a man who survived his illusions. Modern dating markets young men as desirable based on potential, while demanding that young women invest emotional labor up front. This imbalance creates fatigue early. Younger women are told to be patient with men who are figuring it out, to tolerate emotional inconsistency as a phase, to accept disrespect as immaturity rather than intention. Over time, patience becomes exhaustion. What they begin to crave is not excitement, but safety. Not safety in the physical sense alone, but emotional safety. Predictability. A man whose mood doesn't swing with social media metrics, whose sense of self isn't dependent on approval, whose direction is already chosen. Older men, especially those who have failed, lost, rebuilt, and learned restraint, offer that by default. Not because they are perfect, but because they are done pretending. There is an uncomfortable truth beneath this pattern that society avoids discussing. Younger women are not choosing older men because they want to be taken care of like children. They are choosing them because they are tired of taking care of emotionally underdeveloped men their own age. The modern young male is encouraged to delay responsibility indefinitely while still demanding access to intimacy, loyalty, and admiration. This creates a mismatch. Younger women mature emotionally earlier, but are told to slow themselves down to match male development. Over time, many refuse. They step outside their age bracket not to rebel, but to breathe. An older man's emotional containment feels like oxygen after years of suffocation. Older men don't chase validation the same way. They don't text compulsively, don't spiral over delayed replies, don't turn every disagreement into a threat to their identity. This emotional economy is deeply attractive. It signals security without announcement. Younger women are hyper-aware of emotional volatility because they are often punished for it, while men are excused. When they encounter a man who regulates himself, who doesn't outsource his emotional stability to her reactions, the contrast is undeniable. It feels adult. It feels sane. It feels like something solid in a world that feels increasingly artificial. There is also a deeper psychological layer that rarely gets addressed honestly. Younger women are navigating a culture that aggressively sexualizes them while simultaneously devaluing long-term commitment. They are praised for desirability but punished for wanting structure. Older men often exist outside this contradiction. They are less interested in conquest, less driven by novelty addiction, and more selective with their attention. This selectivity creates a sense of being chosen for who she is, not for how she performs. For a younger woman constantly evaluated by metrics she didn't create, this feels grounding. It restores dignity to attraction. Power dynamics are often cited as the primary concern in age-gap relationships, but this analysis is shallow. Real power is not age, money, or experience alone. Real power is emotional leverage. Younger women increasingly understand that dating men who lack self-mastery forces them into caretaker roles disguised as romance. With older men who have already confronted their failures, the emotional labor shifts. Conversations are calmer. Boundaries are clearer. Expectations are spoken instead of implied. This reduces the constant background anxiety that plagues modern dating. It's not that older men dominate. It's that they don't need to. Another truth rarely acknowledged is that older men have already lost illusions that younger men are still chasing. They are no longer trying to be everything to everyone. They know their limitations. This humility reads as confidence because it is earned, not borrowed. Younger women sense this immediately. They can feel when a man is performing masculinity versus embodying it. Performance demands applause. Embodiment requires none. Older men who have integrated their flaws are less defensive, less reactive, and more emotionally generous. This generosity is not dramatic, but it is consistent, and consistency is intoxicating in a culture addicted to unpredictability. The dating landscape has also shifted economically and socially in ways that disproportionately affect younger men. Extended adolescence, financial instability, and identity confusion are normalized. Meanwhile, younger women are encouraged to be hypercompetent, emotionally literate, and socially adaptive. This creates a silent resentment. When younger women date men who are still finding their footing, they often feel like they are shrinking themselves to maintain harmony. With older men, the dynamic reverses. She is not asked to slow down her growth. She is met where she is. That meeting point feels like respect. Older men also communicate differently. Less subtext, less ambiguity, less emotional testing disguised as humor or indifference. Younger women are tired of decoding intentions. They are tired of wondering where they stand. Older men tend to state boundaries plainly because they have learned the cost of not doing so. This clarity is not controlling. It is calming. It allows intimacy to grow without constant negotiation. In a world saturated with mixed signals, clarity feels luxurious. There is a myth that younger women choose older men for financial security. While resources play a role, this explanation misses the psychological core. Financial stability is attractive because it represents foresight and responsibility, not because of material dependence. Younger women are not seeking providers in the traditional sense. They are seeking men who have proven they can sustain themselves without collapsing. This competence extends beyond money. It shows up in health, routine, emotional discipline, and long-term thinking. Older men who have built something, even modestly, signal that they understand cause and effect. This understanding is rare and deeply attractive. Another uncomfortable truth is that younger women are increasingly disillusioned with the performance of modern masculinity. Loud confidence, constant flexing, and hypersexual bravado feel hollow. Older men, especially those who no longer need to impress, often move with a quieter authority. They listen more. They speak less. They don't compete with everyone in the room. This non-competitive presence creates space. Younger women feel seen without being consumed, desired without being objectified, protected without being controlled. These nuances matter more than age ever could. Culturally, we are witnessing a collapse of traditional relationship scripts without a replacement that actually works. Younger women are navigating this collapse in real time. Older men have already lived through previous versions of relational chaos and survived. Their perspective is broader. They are less idealistic, but more realistic. This realism is comforting. It anchors younger women who feel overwhelmed by endless choice and constant comparison. With an older man, the relationship feels intentional rather than experimental. That intention creates depth. There is also an element of mentorship that is often misunderstood. Younger women are not seeking fathers or authority figures. They are seeking men who can offer perspective without condescension, men who have learned restraint, patience, and discernment. Older men who respect a younger woman's autonomy while offering guidance only when asked create a dynamic of mutual growth. This is not imbalance. This is complementarity. Both bring something the other lacks without competition. Younger women are also acutely aware of time in a way that younger men often are not. They understand that emotional investment has a cost. They are less willing to gamble years on men who may or may not mature. Older men represent a lower emotional risk. Their values are visible. Their patterns are established. What you see is what you get. In an era of curated personas and delayed authenticity, this transparency is powerful. There is a darker layer beneath this shift that few are willing to confront. Younger women are responding to a crisis of male direction. Many young men are lost, resentful, and reactive, often without realizing it. This energy leaks into relationships as insecurity, control, or withdrawal. Older men who have processed their resentment and taken responsibility for their outcomes carry a different emotional signature. Younger women feel safer around men who are not secretly angry at the world. Safety is not about weakness. It is about the absence of volatility. Social media has amplified these dynamics by exposing younger women to a broader range of male behavior. They see the complaints, the entitlement, the confusion. They also see older men who have opted out of online performance and live grounded, offline lives. This contrast is stark. The older man's world feels quieter, slower, more intentional. For younger women overwhelmed by constant stimulation, this pace feels restorative. The truth is that younger women choosing older men is not a rejection of youth. It is a rejection of chaos. It is a response to a culture that confuses freedom with fragmentation. Older men who have chosen discipline over indulgence, depth over novelty, and meaning over validation stand out precisely because they are rare. Younger women are not chasing age. They are gravitating toward coherence. This shift also forces men to confront uncomfortable questions about development. Attraction is no longer guaranteed by age or proximity. It is earned through integration. Older men who have done the work naturally attract younger women without trying. Younger men who refuse to grow repel them despite trying harder. This is not about competition. It is about alignment. At its core, this phenomenon reveals something simple and profound. Younger women are choosing men who feel like home, not men who feel like projects. They are choosing emotional stability over excitement addiction. They are choosing presence over potential. They are choosing men who have already faced themselves and survived. Age is incidental. Depth is everything. And perhaps the most uncomfortable truth of all is this: younger women choosing older men is not a trend that will reverse easily. As long as emotional maturity lags behind biological age, as long as responsibility is delayed and identity is outsourced, this pattern will persist. Not because older men are superior, but because they are finished becoming. And in a world obsessed with becoming, there is something profoundly attractive about someone who already is.